everybody, it is Romania Black, and we're on episode 7 of March Comes In Like a Lion. Ha ha! Man, this show has not missed so far, and I'm still reeling from episode 5, just so you know. But episode 6 was really good. Although, we had an end credit scene where our poor boy Rei was having a nice dinner with Hina, just enjoying himself, being a great supportive friend, and then Hina's crush, the middle schooler Takahashi, shows up, and he's like just absolutely smoldering, and her middle school self can't take it, and she's left Rei alone with this middle school guy who he has no clue about. So, and Rei's probably just gonna be just polite enough to make it awkward, and I don't know what we're gonna do with this. But we also met Toji Shoya, who is this like major shogi player who is probably going to be like the final boss of the series. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think he's maybe the final boss. I think Koda might be the final boss, and I say final boss, like the final rival that Rei is going to face, but I feel like Shoya is going to be like right up there, like the second to last boss maybe, or maybe the final rival. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. We still have a long way to go with this show, and I'm excited about that because I don't want to rush through it. I like that we are going to be able to take our time and go week to week with this show. It's really exciting. I only have a couple things to note. Sarah S. pointed out that Kyoko's VA is actually from Attack on Titan. She is a voice actress that plays Armin in that series, and also the same voice actress for Kyoko does the voice acting for her brother Ayumu as a kid, which is so crazy. Now, I don't know if we're going to get to see Ayumu as an adult later on in the series, and if they'll have a different voice actor. We'll just have to see. I've seen a couple comments with stuff about Kyoko, and I've kind of avoided them only because I'm like, I've talked a bit about Kyoko, but I don't want to get too much into her character. The only thing we know about her is what we saw from episode 5. And in a 44 episode series, we have so much more time. So I want to kind of wait until the show gives us more with her character. So we'll kind of wait on that. I Swallow Apple Seeds talked about episode 5 being directed by Takashi, who also directed Mob Psycho episode 7 of season 1, which is like one of my favorite episodes of season 1, which is really cool. Makes sense. And then Death to Boredom shared this in the Discord, the end card for episode 5. I will get episode 6's end card later. But this is episode 5, their end card. It's fine. Or no, this is episode 6 maybe. This might be episode 6's end card. Regardless, it's fine. It's done by Yokusaro Shibata. It's such a weird art style, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, and I don't mean it in a bad way, so I hope that this mangaka, if they ever stumble across this video, do not take offense. But it just looks like, does it look like a fan drawing? And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's gonna sound so bitchy, but I don't know, the lining of it looks so strange. And it just looks, the way that they do Akari here, look, I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying I don't like it. I like it, but it kind of looks like, I know it's going to come across so weird when I say this, but you know, sometimes when people have like the fetishes and like the foot fetish, and then they make girls chunkier than what they are in the series, and there's nothing wrong with it. She looks beautiful, but she just doesn't look like herself in the show. I don't know how else to say it. I don't want to body shame anyone because all bodies are beautiful, but she just doesn't look like herself. I guess that's the best way to put it, and I don't know how else to describe it. I hope that makes sense to anyone watching this, and I'm not a crazy person, but it's fine. It's fine. It's probably the weirdest end card that we've had so far, but no shade to Shibata's artwork. It's fine. But yeah. So that is the end card for the last episode. So huzzah. But yeah, so that's exciting. But thank you, Death to Boredom, for that. So I don't exactly know what else we're going to be examining in this episode, but I'm super excited to see what happens. I want to give a quick shout out over to our philanthropy tier over to Patreon. They support me each week and help me to get subscriptions for YouTube, help me to buy manga, help me to buy anime that I talk about on my channel, and help support hosting the videos, especially on sites like you all are watching this one. So I want to give a shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Dana, to Danger Zone, to Destiny Marie, to Eric, to Kiri, to Lyndon, to El Freya, to Matthew Palfinier, to Murphew, to Nicholas, to Nameless Monster, to Sunspots, to Shimuyama, to Trails, to Translucent Men, to Boo Boo, to Danny Donmai, and to Danovan. Thank you all so much for all of the support. I really appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm super excited to dive into this episode and see what awkward times await Rei. Bless his heart. Let's just find out, shall we? We're going to start episode 7 of March Comes In Like a Lion, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. On today's installment of The Show That Doesn't Miss, I was so captivated by this episode. I honestly thought this would just be kind of like a little, okay, look, I wasn't thinking it was going to be a filler episode, but I was like, oh, it's just going to be a little talk. It's going to be awkward socially with Rei and Takahashi, and it's going to be played for laughs. And then what if Hina comes back and it's this big old runaround, and what are they going to do for a whole episode? It's just going to be a little shenanigans. No, this show fit in 2 chapters and like a fourth of a new chapter, and just paced it out and was like, here's how we're going to do it. And it all flowed really well and cohesively. And it was like enlightening and dramatic and hilarious. And why are my Thursdays not just the best? This episode was so good. And some of the things that came out of it were so surprising, but I absolutely loved them. So let's break this down. I know you all are thinking like, Romania, why did you not bring Whiteboard Kun out? And trust me, I may start next episode with Whiteboard Kun right behind me, ready to go for Shogi lessons, because I thought we were gonna, I looked up at the timer, I'm like, okay, we have like 2 minutes left. They're not gonna get into the full on rules of Shogi for Hina in these 2 minutes. And they did the best thing possible. It's just, you know, Rei has never taught anybody anything before. So Rei's like, well, this is easy. I've studied this every day. All you do is this, and this. And Hina's like, this is really difficult. And so Nikaido's like, hold on. Let me be the perfect spokesperson and commentator. And so I'm like, yes, Nikaido is so damn good. I love Nikaido so much. We'll get to him. But oh my God, this episode was great. And so I'll probably have Whiteboard Kun out next week for our Shogi lessons. But I want to talk about Rei and just kind of like the way he has like gone through. He's been in a slump because he's lost a couple games, which Nikaido makes perfectly clear. But he's lost a couple games. He's in a slump. And he's like, I have what I should do in my head. Why can't I move? Why am I being inactive? And I think it's because he's struggling to find out why is he playing Shogi. Ever since he's had the flashback about his foster dad and his family and everything, ever since he's like had this reoccurring moment of thinking about his family and kind of the basis of why he started playing Shogi professionally, he's now hit this slump where he's like, I don't know what to do. And I don't know why I'm doing this. And so as he's trying to find that out, I love that his world is kind of gray and bland. And it's when Hina asks him to teach her that it suddenly like lights up. Like he's, oh, I'm not alone. Someone wants to learn too. I can pass this on to someone else. And it'll like, it feeds into his excitement about the activity. But I just love the idea that it's all represented as this storm inside of them, this storm of uncertainty that he thinks about constantly. He's like, I have no reason to win, but why is it so painful to lose? And we talked about that in the OP during the episode. He's like, it's always this half measure. But I just love it leaves him in the shadow and in the darkness with everything. I like that he kind of translates how, because he's stuck in this limbo of uncertainty with Shogi, it has bled over into everything else in his life where he can't fully commit to something and he can't fully find the purpose or value in it. So he's just stuck in this depressive slump. which is relatable. I think all of us have been at a point in our lives where we're like kind of in a rut, and we kind of feel that same way. You just kind of don't feel like giving 100% because you don't feel the point of giving 100%. So I feel like it's so relatable with Rei, right? With what he does. So then he ends up with Takahashi, and honestly, that encounter with him went so much better than I thought it was going to. It was such a better experience than I had anticipated with him and Takahashi. It was kind of incredible. And it was mainly because Takahashi knows about him. When we find out, I mean, Shogi is huge in Japan, which should not be surprising. And so for you to be a professional in a nationally recognized sport, of course, there's, especially a very old traditional sport, there's probably going to be a lot of people that connect with that are going to be like, oh, look at this young whippersnapper. But I love the idea that Takahashi relates to Rei, because Rei's super nervous. Rei's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, this is a middle schooler kid, but he's bigger than me. He has a much deeper voice than me. He seems much more mature than me. I don't know how to interact with this kid. And I just got left with him because Hina's, freaking out from her crush. And he asks what his name is, and he asks for his first name, and that's when Takahashi's like, oh. And I love that he has a little blush on his face. He's like, you're a professional. And he's like, I'm Yusuke Takahashi. And he's like, I want to be a professional when I grow up. I never thought of the idea that Takahashi would find Rei to be this source of inspiration, and that they show his dad kind of saying like, well, if he can become a professional when he's in middle school, then you got to keep working hard, right? And I like that Takahashi also says that he didn't know if he'd be able to like make the exams to get into the right high school for baseball. He brings up the idea, he's like, should I rely on a baseball referral to enter a local high school? Should I do that? Or what does he say here? Or go to a rural school that has a chance at entering the National High School Championship. I like the idea. He's like, I don't know if I should be strategic on where I go to school at, or try to rely on my entrance exam or scouting. He's like, you got lucky and got to be a professional player. Why are you going to high school? What's the point? And I think that that's such an eye-opening moment for Rei, because Rei, up until this point, seems kind of in awe of Takahashi for being this, ideal baseball player. And he kind of has to sit back and go, wow, yeah, I am a professional. And you had to take all of these measures to get to where you have a chance at that. And it just happens, right? So I feel like that was an eye-opening moment for Rei, to kind of realize how lucky he was. But then, the idea of him going to high school, he's like, why are you doing that? He's like, because the dad says, if you want to become a professional, you have to be courageous and make a decision. Which for Rei, yeah, it was courageous for Rei to make a decision to, enter into Koda's family. But it wasn't, I'm sure Rei doesn't think of it as courage. Rei thinks of it as running away and hiding and doing and living a fake life. That's what Rei thought when he started it, So it's so fascinating how, if you have imposter syndrome, which that seems to be like what Rei has right now. He has imposter syndrome. Everybody thinks he should become his master. And he's like, I don't know if I'm good enough for that. I don't know if I have the dedication to do that. And then he sees from an outside perspective how Takahashi views him. And Takahashi, one, doesn't recognize the imposter syndrome that Rei has, but two, views him in such a good light that for Rei to see somebody on the outside viewing him like this is probably an eye-opening experience. And so he's like, I decided to go to this high school. A coach helped me at a junior tournament and invited me here. And which is kind of like, Koda helped Rei get into the shogi world. This coach is helping Takahashi get into the baseball world. And he's like, why did you go to high school a year later? And Rei kind of is like, I like that Rei thinks about it. And he's saying, I don't want to give him a half-assed answer. And I don't want to avoid the question. He's sitting here in front of me. I'm cornered up against a brick wall. I have nowhere to go and nowhere to hide. I want to give him a sincere answer. And I can't be superficial about it. But he's like, I don't know how to answer the question. And I like that he's just sitting there being like, well, what should I say? What should I do? And I like that, of course, he's like, how do I say this? He's like, I only specialize in shogi, and I'm not really good at socializing. I like studying, but I couldn't fit in at school. And I don't regret the direction I took in my life so early, but I think I wanted memories of not running away, probably. And that's such a powerful thing to say for him to admit, to be like, look, I didn't want to look like I was running away from high school by becoming a shogi player. And that goes back to Kyoko's words to him about running away. And he's like, oh God, I've said it, now what? And Takahashi takes it to heart, and he's so impressed by it. I just love all the little faces of Rei when he looks cute and blushing. It's so cute. There's so many good animations of Rei in this episode that are so cute. I cannot tell you how cute they are. I'm just like, just absolutely just destroys me. And Takahashi's like, yeah, I know what you mean. And Rei's like, what? He's like, only I will know my own memories of running where you're slacking off. But my coach tells me to believe in myself. And so he's like, even if you have one memory of running away or slacking off, you think I've slacked off the whole time. He's like, I totally get that. He's like, if you have one moment of weakness, it can seem like the whole thing is weak, even if that's not the case. So I love that Takahashi's like, I totally understand what you're saying. He's like, I can't explain it well, but you wanted to get rid of things like that feeling. Like you didn't want to have that even be a possibility. And for Rei to be like, oh my God, he gets me. Oh my God, he understands. Someone else understands. That's such a huge moment, because if you sometimes, so you feel like no one understands where you're coming from sometimes in a situation, and it's so easy in your head to think nobody understands what I'm talking about. Nobody gets what I'm trying to say. And you kind of get down on yourself. So that moment when you find somebody that understands what you mean, oh, it is a life-changing moment. Like my best friend, one of the reasons she's my best friend is that we have those moments where I'm explaining something. She's like, oh, you mean like this? And I'm like, that's it. And it's just like, they get you, right? And here's the thing. Last episode, I talked about wanting to ship Rei and Kyoko. Here's my thing. If I'm being honest, I totally see Rei on like the asexual spectrum, where Rei's like, I don't have romantic feelings towards anyone, and I respect that. I get that. I like shipping romantic couples because it's fun for me, but on a personal level, I totally understand that. I get where Rei's coming from. But I want to do like platonic soulmate shipping with Nikaido and Rei. Like they are best friends forever. I feel like Nikaido and Rei are like myself and my best friend. We are not romantically or sexually attracted to each other in any shape or form, but we are like the soulmates that you're always going to be there for them, and you're always going to have their back, and you're always going to support them and be by their side no matter what. Like that's a best friend forever. My best friend and I are like Nikaido and Rei, platonic soulmates, ready to be by each other's side forever and ever and ever. Like Nikaido would steal the mic at Rei's hypothetical wedding and would give like a 40-minute best man speech. Right? And then would like be crying, like putting Rei in his bosom and crying, and Rei's like, I don't know what to do. So that's literally how I imagine Nikaido, like platonic soulmate vibes, Nikaido and Rei. But with Rei and Takahashi, I totally get like the platonic bromance, platonic bromates. We are totally best friendos in terms, not best friendos because Nikaido has that title. We can't take it away from Nikaido. But I feel like Nikaido and Rei have this platonic soulmate vibe. Takahashi and Rei are like super bros. They are like the platonic bros that are just friends, but they connect with each other on a higher plane than just acquaintances, right? And I totally support that, because then if Rei kind of gets fostered into Hina and Akari and Momo's family, then one day down the road, if Hina and Takahashi end up getting married, then Rei will be at their wedding and they'll be like, oh, hey bro, professional baseball player, professional shogi player, and they're like in-laws practically, right? That's the vibe that I get with Rei and Takahashi. And Rei needs someone like Takahashi. I feel like Nikaido is such a foil to Rei, and he's such like the opposite personality, but Takahashi's super serious and super straightforward and kind of like Rei in that regard, that I feel like they kind of gel and get along together because they are, in that regard, like one another. It's great, but in this moment, I could have made a BL joke. I could have, because Rei was like, I feel really happy, and it was taking all of the urges inside of me not to make like a BL, like, oh, you like, this is love moment for Rei with Takahashi, but it's really not. It's really like, sadly, it's the first genuine moment of sheer happiness that I think Rei has felt in his young teenage years. And I'm like, oh my God, like just the birds flying away symbolizing freedom, the open ocean. He's like the first bit of happiness he feels connecting with someone. And it's so well done. It's beautiful. I'm absolutely all about it. He's like, I could have cried in this moment. And then so Hina comes back, and all the Takahashi players, they all have like Seijo Haikyuu volleyball uniform colors. And I love that Takahashi's like, well, I want to talk to him more. And he's like, let's talk again. And then he's like, get me in touch through Hina. I mean, Miss Kawamoto. Rei does not realize that he just became the ultimate wingman for Hina by him being like, oh, you can get a hold of me through Hina. He just like cemented the deal. Like he just got them together. He doesn't realize he's played matchmaker. He's the biggest wingman for Hina. Hina, you better thank Rei later because he just got you hooked up, girl. I freaking love it. And she's so tiny compared to him. Oh. And he like even looks kind of like back at her when he's leaving. He like gives her a little look and she's too like embarrassed to know at the time. It's so cute. She's like, right. Ah! I'm rooting for them so hard. And then I love that Hina and Rei are just like, oh, they're such sibling vibes. So sibling coded. I love it. So then, yeah. And she's like going on and on about him. And Rei is so happy. Yeah, she's like, oh, Takahashi really has his act together. I'm like, yes, Takahashi is the most mature middle schooler I've ever seen in my life. I absolutely love it. Oh my God, the cats that are full and talking about the one cat that says, I can see time. The humor in this show is so bonkers and off the wall, and it is exactly my type of humor, and I freaking love it. It's hilarious, and I'm just, little moments like that just absolutely gag me. I love it. So yeah, Akari gets Rei all of the food to take home, and Rei's like talking about like feeling fluffy and warm, and he couldn't fall asleep because he was so excited that he stayed up playing shogi. And but more than just staying up all night and having this like second wind of excitement, he smelled the water and heard the sound of the waves. Like he, for once, he wasn't drowning in this depression and drowning in this self-doubt where he just kind of fell asleep and wasn't soaking anything in and was just like a blank slate. He actually was experiencing the world around him again and feeling it. And that's so beautiful. I'm like, yes, mwah, love it. Absolutely. 1,000 times here for it. It's so good. But yeah, just like how he asked me. And I love this idea that just like Takahashi was admiring Rei and wanted to ask him, Rei has admired Toji and eventually wants to ask him. Because yeah, Takahashi is asking Rei looking from the other side of the goal. And now Rei wants to look at the other side of his own goal and ask Toji. And I want that to happen. So we've got, what? It's episode 7. We got like 37 more episodes for that to happen. We got a while. We're going to be here a bit. And I'm really excited for that. That's going to be so good. I don't know if stories are told on the other side of the goal. Love it. So yeah, important things and important matters. We get the second chapter 9 minutes in, which I was like, okay, sure. And they're talking about having dinner, and poor Hina. I love that Rei enjoys about Hina that she's this big ball of energy. She's this big ball of liveliness, whether it's being sad or mad or happy. I feel like Rei in the sense that I can be a pretty reserved and quiet person. I don't seem like it, but in a big group setting, sometimes I can kind of get overwhelmed by a crowd and kind of like get quieter. And I've noticed about myself that my friend group, my social circle, are all big personalities. They're just personalities of big people because I enjoy listening to big people. And I'm like people with big personalities, I enjoy listening to them and being like, interesting. And so I feel like I surround myself with people that are kind of like Hina, which is why when Rei says, I like that about her, I'm like, I totally get that. It also makes sense why Rei likes being around Nikaido, because Nikaido is the same way. And so then, yeah, she's all like having this crush moment because Takahashi is there and he's like, wow, it's been a while since I've come here. He just looks so big in that space. And I love that Momo was like, she doesn't understand that Hina's crushing, so she's just grabbing on everybody the whole time. Momo is like the most realistic 2-year-old I've ever seen in my life, or 3-year-old, or however. She's the most realistic toddler. She's just grabbing onto you and just flailing everywhere and making little noises and staring and saying Botaro creepily. girl is every toddler. And Rei's just like, hey, it'll be okay. I like that Akari was smart and was like, here, look, make some curry. It'll be fine. And she's like, but it's not fancy enough for him. And Rei's like, oh my God, what do we do? And so I just love that Momo crawls up Rei as he's talking. She's just scaling him like a tree. But I like that Akari's like, okay, look, we're going to keep it basic. He's a middle school boy. He's going to eat rice and curry and think it's perfectly fine. He is not going to want a fancy dinner, girl. Don't overthink this. And so she's like, but to make you appeased, I'll make some fried chicken and some egg. We'll throw that in there for fanciness, and then we'll compromise, right? Akari is amazing. She's like best big sister mother figure. Freaking love it. And I love that Hina's like, fine, that will work. The tornado of the cats around her, though, was hilarious. Like, it was just so over the top. And she ends up giving them the food, and they just like garble down the cat kibble. And she lost, and they're just eating it. I could just see this coming straight out of the manga, and it's actually really, really funny. It's great. So yeah, and then of course he eats it. I love that they were like, doki 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 doki. They were like talking about the heart thumping, waiting to see if he likes it or not. And he ends up really enjoying it. And they're just like, yes, thank God. And here's the other thing. This is what got me, was when Rei's like, he's eating it in such a delicious way. I feel like in some regards, Rei views Takahashi not as a life coach, but as like a life motivator. I feel like that's another thing of them being bros, is that Rei looks to Takahashi and sees how much he's enjoying life, and he's taking inspiration from it. And because Takahashi is not like shoving it down his throat how he needs to like improve his life, like Nikaido, then he can actually like sit back and go, wow, he's really enjoying that. Okay, maybe I should follow suit. You know, maybe I should be like that too. I like that he's just like a friendly motivator. But yeah, so Takahashi talks about how his grandpa, he's like, can I borrow your VCR? And they're like, sure. The fact that this show is bringing out a VCR is, it dates this show a little bit. So it dates it back to like late 90s, 2000s. Because I think once like the mid 2000s hit, that's when everybody started getting DVDs and VCRs weren't as much of a thing. If you were born after the year of 2004, you probably don't know what a VCR is. But I grew up with VCRs. They had these little black tapes, and you popped them in, kind of like a cassette tape, which if you don't know what that is, Google it. And you just pressed fast forward and rewind, and you just kind of went through the tape, and that's what you did. And they were very clunky. They're very outdated technology, but they were all the rage in the 80s and 90s. And so the VCR, I had one, and yeah, I even had one up through college. But it's like the 57th cup. And he's like, oh, it's this. And he turns it on. And then there's Nikaido. And I love that Rei instantly spits out his water like, dear God, what? And it's like cup commentary. And I love, they're like, the guy who came over last time, Botaro. And they're like, why is he on TV? And he's like, oh, well, the Nikaido fourth Dawn has been here too. I like in Takahashi's like, oh my God, all the celebrities have been in this house. And Rei's like, no! What also hit me in this is that Rei has probably never watched a VHS tape, which is what those tapes were called. He's probably never watched a VHS tape of himself playing Shogi. So him seeing himself on TV, oh, I got the embarrassment. The embarrassment bled through and soaked into my skin. Watching yourself on tape, I know I do it kind of on this channel as a side hustle all the time, and it's a thing, but I remember back in college when I was doing competitive public speaking, we had competitions, and you had to like basically memorize a 10-minute speech and deliver it. So you had a 10-minute memorized monologue essentially that you gave competitively, and it was determined on a lot of different factors, but speed was one of them. And when I was competing when I was younger, one of my problems was I would talk too fast sometimes. And my coach would get on to me all the time. Like, I remember one time my coach threw pencils at me being like, slow down. And I was like, but it was a different time. It was in good fun. They didn't mean anything bad about it. I look back on it fondly because it was kind of funny, like having a pencil thrown at you being like, slow down. You're like, I'm trying. But I remember that one of my coaches said, you need to record yourself and see for yourself, because I was like, I'm not going that fast. And they were like, yes, you are. And I was like, no. So they made me record myself, and watching yourself perform in a competition on tape and listening to yourself talk sometimes is very embarrassing. And I was like, oh, do I have to watch this? So the moment that Ray's like, oh my God, I'm on this tape, I felt that. That was palpable. Where he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I've never seen anything like that. And here's the thing. I didn't realize either. I had forgotten that Rei didn't want Hina and Momo knowing about his professional shoginess. I remember Akari knew because she's seen him at the bar with the other professional shogi players, and the grandpa knew, but I forgot that Hina and Momo did not. Of course, Momo was too young to care, but I forgot that Hina didn't know. So Takahashi is like, oh shit, I didn't know that. And then I love that he's like, oh, well, you know, he's your best friend, Nikaido, right, Mr. Kiriyama? And Rei's like, best friend? How did it get to that? What are you talking about? And the best part about this whole tape is when Takahashi's like, oh, you guys are really close because Mr. Nikaido says it often in interviews and stuff. So Rei's like, you mean to tell me that my rival is telling everyone on national television and in all the media outlets that we are best friends forever? It's so funny because even though it's true, Rei's just like, I did not consent to this. I don't, what? It's so good. It's so good. Rei's like, I'm going to kill him. I love that Rei just gets he gets madder and madder as this goes on. And he's like, oh my God. I love that Rei has an outburst of emotion. Like this storm has been brewing inside of him this entire series so far, and he's not wanted to like come out with any emotion because he's afraid of what people will think about him, how people will react to it. And he has this moment of just getting like really pissed off, and he's like, well, why is he saying this? And then I love that Hina's like, oh, look at you getting emotional coming out of your shell. That's all right, just keep it up. Like, I love that she encourages him to be open with himself and to say what he's gonna say and be emotional. I think that's great. I love that. And so, like, if Nikaido's commenting, he's like, we could save this video for another time. And then we see Rei doing a match against someone and losing in the cup. And Rei's like, oh my God, I can't. He's like, well, thank you for dinner. I'm going to leave right now. And that's when they all notice that Hina and him give him a hard time for being like, why are you on TV? I thought you were in a shogi club. And Takahashi's like, oh crap, I didn't know he was keeping it a secret. I felt for Takahashi in that moment because he didn't mean to give it away. He didn't mean to like share his secret. And he was like, whoops. And luckily, before Takahashi has time to feel too bad, the grandpa shows up and he's like, oh, your secret's out, huh? The grandpa's a good buffer in this moment. He's a really good buffer about asking Takahashi and asking about their grandparents. I like during this whole exchange, like Rei's not allowed to leave. Everyone's crammed in this little living room. He's on the television and Rei's just sitting there in the fetal position like, I hate life. I don't know what to do now. I'm right back to square one. Just socially. It's so funny. And then they're like, oh, they wanted me to ask you a question. And saying like, this move, Nikaido says that's the move where you lost. Like, how can that be? I like that they basically asked Takahashi to come over and ask Rei how he knew the move that he lost on was the move that he lost on. Like, that's such a humiliating question. And Rei's like, yep, okay. Well, what can we do? He goes back to being Eeyore. He's like, I guess we'll talk about it. And when he sits, here's the thing. That living room is so crammed and jam-packed with stuff that it's not a big space. But when they cut to Rei explaining, or when they cut to Takahashi saying, oh, my dad and grandma didn't think the move was that bad, and Rei's looking at the TV, the room suddenly opens up and is so much bigger. But he's like this in this little tiny area of light with shadow all around him. Like, he just looks so cute and precious there, but I feel so bad for him. He's like, yep. I lost all right. They said it felt like an aggressive move with manly spirit. He's like, after my opponent surrounded me, he waited for me to make a mistake and he didn't attack. And so he's like, I kept going and I wasn't thinking about it. I doubted myself. And that's when Nikaido speaks up and says, don't try to act cool, Kiriyama. He's like, if you really want to win, then persevere. Don't just attack. You have to defend. I love Nikaido as like being his life coach in this moment. Nikaido with the white suit and the red bow tie. This is the weirdest point of reference, but he reminds me of Team Rocket from Pokemon. I feel like there was some kind of casino episode or something where they wore like white tuxedos or something with a red bow tie. He looks like he's on an episode of Pokemon. I don't know why. That's why that reference is there. It just came to me like that. But I love that Rei is just like, I'm trying, Nikaido. What are you doing? And then Nikaido, because they're BFFs and Nikaido knows him like a book, he's like, you've been acting weird lately. And they're like, Nikaido, can we get back to the commentary? He's like, you used to be more careful and single-minded back in the 3rd Dan League, which now that he's in the 4th League, there's more pressure, and that's getting to Rei as well. He's like, bravery and recklessness are similar but different. And I like that Rei like looks up at the screen while Nikaido's talking, and he's suddenly like, Nikaido, Kiriyama, can you hear me? And he's like, you're too close to the camera. You better take care of yourself. And I love that he goes from like looking down to slowly looking back up at the camera. And I was like, oh, that moment was so good animation-wise to show Rei like looking up. Like, I hear you, Nikaido. We're both in the 4th Dan League now. I get it. Oh my God, it's amazing. He's like, you're too close. Nikaido 4th Dan, they're playing on the 4th floor. He can't hear you. Calm down. I just love that the cats have settled into the grandpa and Takahashi's lap. He's like, you heard him, kid. You got yourself a good friend there. And he's like, and I like Takahashi's like, damn, I'm envious. All my best baseball guys, they're not friends like Nikaido. I love it. Oh, and the cat's under Momo too. And he's like, I'm saying this as your best friend. Your best friend, he says. I love that Nikaido's like, I'm your best friend. I'm telling you this. It's so funny. This episode is amazing. Youth, I'm jealous. And then Botaro, he's like, I'm going to say this once, but it's kind of important. Listen, Kiriyama. In fact, get this on video so you can watch it over and over again. And I love that Rei's like, oh my God, they're BFFs after all. Take better care of yourself because you're not doing that. It's the reason why you can't progress. And I love that Rei's like, you don't know me. You don't know my life. You don't know my tragic backstory. But it got through. It got through to him. It hit him. He's like, damn it, who cares? Who the hell do you think you are? That pisses me off. And they're like, that kid's angry. It's like, in the first place, what he's saying is crazy. I'm only going to say this once, so record it over and over and watch it over and over again. I don't understand it at all. I love that Rei doesn't understand because Rei's come from an environment where Kota wasn't there because he was always at shogi matches. Kyoko and Ayumu were not really interested in being his friend because of what was going on in the household. He had a sister and parents before them, but he was super young before they passed. So this is like the first time he's had like an actual friend that is actively motivating him, whether he likes it or not. And he doesn't know what to do with that. And it's so good. I love it. And Takahashi's like, I think Mr. Nikaido's feeling for you as his best friend are genuine. I could ship Nikaido and Rei all day romantically, but I don't think Rei is ready for a romantic relationship. He's got a lot to get through so far. So platonic soulmates right now. But if you ship Nikaido and Rei, I see it. I see it hardcore. Very hardcore. Yep. I love it so much. And I love when the grandpa calls them sweet and sour. That is their ship name. They are sweet and sour. Nikaido is sweet for sure. And Rei. But no, Rei might actually be the sweet one because Nikaido can't have sweets. Nikaido is the sour. It works both ways because Nikaido can't have sweets, so he could be the sour and Rei is a secret sweetie. But it could also work where Rei is the sour one because he's like grumpy, 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 and Nikaido's the sweet one because everybody likes him. It works both ways. It's perfection. He's like, there's hope for this generation yet. Oh, old man, you shipping them too? I love it. I love it. And then Hina being like, you're lucky. He's like, what's lucky? She's like, you are. This is the first time I've heard you raise your voice, Rei. She's like, you're lucky you have a friend that resonates this much with you. Right? And then I like that the screen slowly starts to open up and the black and white screen starts to go into color when she's like, this is fun. Can you teach me shogi? And so, yeah, teach me how to play shogi. And he's like, I didn't know it would make my stomach feel fluffy and happy. Because, yeah, nothing's more fun than when somebody asks you to teach them something and it's something you know you're good at or that you know a lot about. He may not want to admit if he cares about it or not, but he knows a lot about it and he's practiced it a lot. So being able to teach someone and share something you're at least involved in extensively is great. And of course, he goes to get everything set up. I like these being economical and thinking about the space and Momo spilling milk on everything. But then, of course, Nikaido shows up, which of course he does. And I love that he just has the biggest eyes. And he's like, well, hey, friend. Hey, bestie. So good. I love it. And he instantly pours on the charm when he goes to their house. And of course, yay, I love Momo's like, yeah, Botaro. And Rei's like, here we are. So yeah, they go to explaining, and the board and everything is pretty much like a chessboard with the 81 squares, right? That part's interesting. But then they talk about that you have 81 boxes, you and your opponent, 20 pieces with 8 different types. So each piece, it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah. So there's different pieces with 8 different types on them. I'm sure pawns are the one type that's up front, kind of like in chess. And there's a king. Again, we're going to have to get Whiteboard Kun out next week because I think they're going to explain them in more detail. But there's the king, there's the pawn, there's the general, there's a dragon. There's more pieces. They all have different personality types. And he's like, you take pieces and your main goal is to capture the king, but pieces can be taken back and forth. He's like, here's one thing that is different. I was always taught, it says the person who goes first is black, the second person is white. I was always taught in checkers that it was fire before ash. So white went first and black, because ashes were black, went second. But also whoever taught me that could have been full of horse poop. So could have been wrong about that too. But yeah, then you go back and forth. Each of the 8 different types of pieces has its own attributes and range of movement. Yeah. So, and the columns are called files and the rows are called ranks. And they're all numbered. Like you go, it's kind of like Battleship where you go like C5 or D4 or something like that, right? I think in chess, you have a king, you have a queen, you have a rook, you have a bishop, you have a knight. So you only have 5 pieces in chess. And for Shogi to have 3 extra pieces, the dragon, the general, and something else. I'm excited for next episode where we might get into more detail with it. He's like, and all the boxes have an address to tell where you go to. And then it's about each of them. Like, he gets so caught up with it, he starts going faster and faster. And Nikaido's like, hold on a second. You're explaining to children. You're too stiff, Kiriyama. I like that Nikaido opens up. And he's like, she's going to think it's too difficult. And she's going to lose track and not want to play. She'll be too nervous. He's like, you got to make an easy first impression. He's like, I'll explain. He has made his own Shogi for Beginners picture book. Nikaido, look, I know you want to leave your legacy in the Shogi world. This is it. Like, get this published now before your liver or kidneys have some kind of issue and get that book out there. That's your legacy. Like, Nikaido's legacy is to have this picture book explaining Shogi to kids. There's your gold mine. There's your legacy. That's it. You're going to get people involved in Shogi and encouraged to play it. Do this now. You have a butler and money, but it has like pop-ups and like all these little like cats and all these little forms with these cute little things. It's a freaking adorable book. I would buy this in a heartbeat. It's so cute. It's like a gold mine. Like, get this done. And so, yeah, you have 3 rows on the side, and they're from your opponents. And I'll tell you each of the personalities of the cats. I love it. It's so cute. And then, of course, Rei's like, well, of course he can teach things well. Rei's just like, sad Charlie Brown walk home. Absolutely adorable. And then we have this really super cute CGI ED. The only thing I hate about it is that they don't give us English subtitles in the ED. So we can't follow along and learn the song. How dare. I'm sure on YouTube there is a version with subtitles. So maybe in the Discord, if y'all send me a link to it, that'd be great. But this episode was so freaking good. It was amazing. I loved it. It was funny. It was enlightening. It was heartwarming. It was hilarious. It was checking off them boxes. And next week we get to learn how to play shogi, and I'm so excited. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what your favorite part of this episode was. There were so many little random things. I'm so curious to know what your favorite part was. Please tell me down below in the comments. I want to know. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with more March Comes In Like a Lion.